Now, there's been a dramatic rise in the use of tasers by police in England and Wales. New figures show they were drawn almost 8,000 times in 1 year. Nearly 15,000 officers now carry the devices, which have been dogged by controversy. Human rights groups insist widespread use is putting the public at greater risk. This programme has been given rare access to the training that all officers must complete before being certified to carry a taser on the streets. Our Home Affairs correspondent Simon Israel has this.
Taser! Red dot from a taser, 50,000 volts.
Imagine an officer threatens to fire 50,000 volts through your body. In reality, it's a tiny charge, but powerful enough to render the vast majority quivering wrecks. A red dot aimed at the chest is often enough to invoke fear.
Turn around for me.
And ultimately submission. Today, 12 officers from various response teams in London have embarked on the official 3-day training exercise.
So we come in, okay, taser.
At the end, they will be authorised to carry and use the device when they see fit. The course has a 25% failure rate. Instructors aim to weed out the trigger-happy and the reluctant. Officers get recommended for the course by their superiors. There's no psychological assessment.
Stop moving, you're under arrest.
Police constables Keryn, Pearse
Taser!
and PC Kenyon-Moores are among the chosen 12.
It's dangerous out there, really, and the more options you have, I'd say, the better, basically.
How does it feel to pull a trigger like that?
Feels like a party popper. It makes a pop. There's no coil on it, and then it's done.
If they pass, they'll join the 14,700 police officers now armed with tasers. That's 11% of officers in England and Wales. Numbers have soared since it was rolled out in 2008. Today's Home Office figures reveal tasers were drawn nearly 8,000 times in 2011 and fired in about 20% of cases. Back at the training centre, officers are taken through various menacing scenarios, not just about when to fire, but crucially when not to.
Stay exactly where you are.
A finger may remain on the trigger right up until the point the target's subdued.
Prisoner secure. Prisoner secure.
Stay where you are.
The situations get increasingly tense, and the stooges become more heavily protected. The officers are assessed on ensuring the two probes are fired from an optimum distance and far enough apart for an electrical circuit to travel through most of the body. In the classroom, they get warned about the dangers and what to do if things go wrong. Things went wrong in Manchester in July to 23-year-old Jordan Begley. He's the 8th person to have died having been tasered by police. His mother, Dot, took me through the events. She had called the police herself after her son had rowed with a neighbour. He wasn't armed, she said, or hostile.
All I was focusing on was Jordan was stood there, the officer was stood here, the taser was shining at Jordan.
It was at that point, she says, she was ushered out of the house.
Didn't have a clue they tasered him until they actually I seen the ambulance pulling up, emergency lights, you know, running in the house sort of thing. And it was when they actually brought him out on the stretcher, and he just wasn't with it. His eyes were just flickering, and I knew then something really had happened.
Could he talk?
No, he didn't talk at all. No. I spoke to him, told him I'd get him shoes on and come up to the hospital. I won't be long, mate, I'll be there in a minute, you know, sort of thing.
So he was still alive when he was brought out of the house?
His eyes were just flickering. I don't know if he heard me, I don't know if he was... I don't know. Do you know what? I don't know.
What the police didn't know was that Jordan had a suspected heart condition. None of the previous 7 taser-related deaths have been officially blamed on the device.
Even at this early stage, how can you be sure that his death is somehow connected to
well,
being
you told me he was alive before they turned up. Right, I made the phone call at 16 minutes past 8. By 8:30, that kid was dead. So you told me it wasn't the taser that killed him.
Greater Manchester Police say he suffered a medical episode. Jordan's death is now the subject of an IPCC investigation. In fact, it's joined a long list of inquiries into the use of tasers. There have been 79 investigations in the last 3 years, with 267 complaints made to the IPCC between 2010 and 2012, but only one has resulted in any action against police officers. A critical review is awaiting publication. An area of concern remains the use of what's termed the drive-stun technique.
Draw.
One method forms part of the training course. Officers are taught to fire at close range and then use the angled drive stun for maximum effect. The other is more controversial and only shown but not taught. It involves removing the cartridge and placing these electrodes directly on the body to inflict pain.
The word drive stun obviously conjures up lots of images in people's heads. However, in those circumstances, it's actually an irritant rather than anything more than that. But what it does do is it can actually leave signature marks on the person, for example, some low-level burns.
On the final day of training, they're tested on making split-second decisions. When to fire and when not to. 11 of the 12 pass, including PC's Pearse and Kenyon-Moores.
If I'm going to use Taser, I've got to justify everything I'm doing. As long as I can justify why I've chosen that option, then I'd be happy with what I do.
Whenever I go to a call, I don't know what's going to happen when I go through that door. All of my training comes together at that point, and you deal with it as you see it.
The Taser was originally marketed as a weapon. Firearms officers regarded it as a toy gun.
Draw.
But the focus now is on how well it prevents harm. What today's figures can't tell you is just how many officers and members of the public, violent or otherwise, it saved from injury.